So,
Oh my god.
first question. It's been a while since we've done a podcast.
A hot minute.
I know.
Lucas. I haven't seen you in a long time.
I know. We've moved offices, you've moved brokerages, and then the spring market, and then all the things, and then Courtney's 4-week vacation. She doesn't even have a microphone right now to chime in because that's
true. You don't now.
So we're just going to make fun of her. She can't say anything about it.
I'm out of practice. I forgot it.
Yeah. But here we are getting started again, seeing how this goes in a new office, new setting. So the first question I have, how do we feel about tip culture these days?
Oh, it's out of control. I'm so glad you asked. I can't wait to go on this rant. Why?
I wish I had a microphone.
You should have a mic.
I could rant about this too.
I agree. Why? Everything gets a tip now. You should start putting it like at the end. See if they'll tip you.
Get a tip? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get a tip every now and then.
Do you really?
Yeah.
What am I
Rarely,
doing?
but we do. We do.
I should do this after showings.
Well.
After like 5 showings, you have the option to tip Mandy and pay for some gas.
So where's the line with tipping?
I feel like unless it's a sit-down restaurant, why am I tipping you? Like, unless you're going back and forth and providing a service, like why are we tipping all of the time?
Yeah, so when they flip the little thing over, you just flip it back to them?
Like at like the Starbucks drive-thru?
Yeah.
It depends. If they're nice to me, I will give them a tip.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Now we're buckling.
Not me.
No.
It depends. It really does depend.
On the app because
Then you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to have that interaction.
It's true.
Even Qdoba asked me the other day if I wanted to leave a tip, and I was like, "What?" It's like Chipotle, sort of. But so you're just standing in line, and then
Jimmy John's, all of them, they do it.
Yeah.
I tip at Jersey Mike's though.
And the thing that's crazy is, so like
they putting in work over at Jersey Mike's, slicing the meat, every single sandwich.
But like this is crazy because I worked at Subway when I was a teenager, and we weren't allowed to take tips at all. Like people would try, and we had to say no because if they caught us in the cameras taking it, we would get fired, which is cool.
Yeah. Now, I mean, the Jersey Mike's by the gym, they know us by name at this point because after Saturday class, that's where we go. That's where Jordan wants to go. So they pretty much know us by name.
The girls at 7 Brew are starting to memorize my order, like multiple of them, and I'm getting really upset. I'm like, oh no, this can't be good. Oh, it's a full-on addiction at this point. So I do tip them because I feel like they're
scary. There's so much going on.
It is. But the fact that they like know me by name and know my order, it's a little embarrassing. I think that means I'm here too often. But I agree, tipping culture's out of control.
Yeah.
I had a tow truck guy ask me for a tip.
Isn't that what you pay? That's what I pay you for. Just raise your price if that's what you want. Like, I don't get that.
That's why I don't like a lot of these things, like food trucks, right? For example, I mean, a good food truck's really good.
Yeah.
But it's also like $15 for a hot dog. But you're also the owner. So just charge what you need to charge and, don't tip. And that's the thing. Like if you're the owner, just charge what you need to charge.
Well, the thing that annoys me too is in this economy, you're already charging too much.
Yeah.
In general.
Yeah.
Why am I paying $16 for a hamburger and then you want me to tip you?
Because of gourmet hamburgers. That's another question. When did all this start? Gourmet cupcakes, gourmet hamburgers, gourmet hot dogs. All these. We just put gourmet
home inspections,
right? All of a sudden a cupcake costs like $6 a cupcake.
Yeah.
When did that happen?
I blame Crumble Cookies for their $5 cookies.
Yeah.
I think that they started this whole we can charge an obscene amount.
Yeah.
For a baked
Someone got into look, she ain't got a microphone and she'll be mad here in a second. Somebody got into Busch Gardens group page the other day and complaining about the $40 parking. They're like, why do they do this? And I just replied, because you pay it.
Yeah. Where else? What else are you gonna do?
That's the end. I mean, that's the only reason.
Well, they run trolleys, don't they?
No.
It's a rare occurrence.
Oh, I was gonna say the only time I've been there, they came and got me from the parking lot, drove me to the park. So I'll pay $40 for that.
Last year they started not. Because apparently you gotta have do you have to have a CDL for that? I think you have to have a CDL.
I'm in entertainment.
Because I think somebody posted when someone asked that question, because there were so many trolleys not running and they were walking from like the back parking lots.
Yeah.
I think someone posted that you have to have a CDL to drive a trolley, which is an issue because we're going to find a trolley driver for Busch Gardens, that has a CDL because, but
It's normally old people that drive them.
yeah, so we're just not getting those
Just
anymore.
get a golf cart then. Just
Right,
stop
get a
having
golf
a
cart.
trolley.
So,
Problem solved.
yeah. Anyways,
All
all
right.
right, moving on.
That's all I have for today.
So I want to talk about this came up, and I shared it with you in a mastermind group that I'm a part of, a realtor mastermind, and I'm a part of for free. I don't have to pay for it. Because I got kicked out of that one, I had to pay for. So the free one that I'm a member of in a different region, it was a Hampton Roads mastermind group.
You have to buy their affections.
I don't actually, and I'm winning.
Yeah.
And but a lender posted, because again that mastermind group values the opinions of their vendors. And she posted just as a heads up, but what she's seeing, and she had 2 clients, both had they were repeat clients, and they had done business before with agents. Great experience with the agents. One of them bent over backwards, did all the things. Other one was just a really good agent. I don't know all the details, but now they're selling and buying again, and they went with a Redfin agent. And basically what happened was, because when the lender, like, hey, do I need to loop in so-and-so? Like, no, I'm using Redfin and this is the agent or however that works. And come to find out what they're doing is, Redfin, I think, owns Rocket, all the Rocket stuff, Rocket Mortgage and Rocket whatever. And of course, Zillow's doing the same stuff. And what they're doing is, like we've talked before on data collection, that's what they're doing. So they're getting all of this information from all these different ways and businesses that they've bought, and they are using algorithms and AI to target people on predictive analysis on when they think they're going to be buying or selling a home. And then they start blasting them with ads because they know all the things about you now. And so they are doing, through all these algorithms and AI and technology, are staying in front of getting in front and staying in front of these clients. So all they have to do is click a link, get pre-approved, get connected to an agent, start the process, move on. And I find that really fascinating, that something that I've said for a while. I know you've probably said it for a while.
For years. Yep.
And everybody keeps saying, just like the lawsuit, it'll be fine. Nothing's going to happen. And now all of a sudden it's picking up steam. Because I've said for a while now that once these companies figure out how to either put agents on salary,
This is what we talked about. Yep.
or they figure out how to cut out the agent altogether through virtual everything, like was it Open Door,
Yeah, but Open Door's failing.
They are,
yeah,
but again, at some point they're going to figure that out. Maybe
Yeah.
not Open Door, but somebody's going to figure out that model, right? Where it's all, but it's fascinating that you have, and I've said before, it's just like Orkin and Terminex, big companies, all the money for marketing, but they're never going to get 100% of the market share, ever. There's always going to be, the Pest Nows and the Safe Solutions and the Arrow and all that. But they can get a good chunk of it, I think, just through what they're doing, because they have the pockets to develop this stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah. What do you think?
So it was about 3 years ago that I started really diving into what was happening with these third-party websites and seeing how rapidly, especially over the last 18 to 24 months, how quickly they started buying up software within our industry. And it was that moment where I was figuring out who funds them, right? Like, it has to be bigger than Zillow. It has to be bigger than Redfin or Trulia. So who's funding them? And then connecting the dots of the same people are funding all of them. And that was when, for me, it was kind of the writing is on the wall. Like, there is big, big money backing these companies, and the industry is going to shift. And I think the lawsuit was created for a purpose.
Yeah.
And I think we're at the precipice of everything shifting, which is why I made the move that I did. And I kind of waited on the sidelines knowing that I really felt like these changes were coming, and then figuring out that I need to understand how it works and why it works. And so part of me switching was to be trained by Zillow and to understand how they work, what they do. And I will say, even from studying them previously versus now being a part of these trainings and to see the software and to see what's coming has completely blown my mind. Like, it is so much bigger than I originally thought. Yeah. And when you're talking about data, every little last bit of everything is data to them.
It is.
Everything.
It is.
And everything is tracked. Everything for me as an agent is tracked. Everything is a metric. And so that has been really interesting. I don't know that I see agents completely going away. I think there is a purpose for them. I just think they will be used as
I think it's
employees.
going to be scaled just like any other industry.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, right now in our area, there's 7,000 agents, right? Mm-hmm. And not 7,000 producing agents.
They're not active agents. Yeah.
Not even 7,000 agents, not even half of that is what you probably consider agents that you would go out and be like, if you were in any other industry,
mm-hmm. I think we're less than 1,000 active, actual participating agents doing the job regularly.
If some of these agents, you look at the numbers, right? And, we'll call, because the average, national average, 6 to 8 homes a year, 10 homes a year, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But so to get an average, you obviously have people that do 1 or 2, 2 or 3. But imagine working at any other business, any other company where you make that much money for that much work. No one stays in that industry for long, right? So like, oh man, I work 40 hours a week. I do all the things, and I made $12,000 last year. Mm-hmm. Nobody does that but real estate. Right? And it's always been that way. There's always been somewhat of an oversaturation because there's always been, the 80-20 rule or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think what you're going to see is a lot of those finally, I won't say finally go away, but you're going to see more call professionals, right?
Yes, 100%.
We can say, and that's not a being derogatory about how the state of the industry is right now. It's just, for a lot of people, it looks more of a hobby.
Mm-hmm. I guess a lot of people treat it that way. Yep.
Is the best way to look at it, right? Like, I can make, 10,000 doing stuff on the side as a side hustle. And that's how a lot of people treat it, but they're doing it as a full-time. And that's the problem, right? Because again, who's going to work 365 and make less than $20,000 a year? So I think that's going to get rid of a lot of those agents who, whether for whatever reason, whether they overestimated how easy it was, or it's just not for them, or other reasons that we've talked about. But I think that's what's going to happen is the over the long term, you're going to see a lot of agents, the agent numbers are going to dwindle. And even though you'll see a lot of people at some point, they're going to start talking about the sky's falling because we've gone from, again, using our numbers, 7,000 to 3,000. And they will say the industry's dying. It's not that it's dying, it's that it's correcting.
Mm-hmm.
You're shedding the weight, right? That's just that's not productive.
Well, and I think, honestly, from my perspective, the third-party websites are starting to realize that maybe they created this monster a bit, because what I'm anticipating a lot of them to do is pulling back their pay-to-play programs, where agents who get in as rookie agents and start reinvesting into buying leads into their business, and then they're buying the leads and they're closing and they're buying the leads, but their profit margin's really, really small. Yeah. The problem I think that third-party websites are starting to see is that those were rookie agents who just were smart in the pay-to-play program, but they lack training and they lack experience, and they don't have the oversight that maybe they should have, especially with these cloud brokerages existing. Mm-hmm. When you have all these agents who don't have the accountability to higher ups within their company, then you have a lot of loose cannons out there. And I think what third-party websites are realizing is we have a lot of undereducated, undertrained agents that work for us that we feed business to and then make us look bad. Yeah. And so what I think they may do is start to pull back on those pay-to-play programs and reinvest into teams and companies and brokerages and start partnerships with those that exist that already have the structures in place, the management to oversee. I think it makes a lot more sense for them to do that and get a better reputation than what we've previously seen in the industry.
Yeah, I think so. And like you said earlier, you can start seeing more of an employee model.
Oh, yep. That's 100% where I think we're headed.
Because I've always said it, and I know this is like real estate special, but there's no other company you can be a 1099 and operate the way realtors operate. Yeah. Without getting in a lot of trouble. Right? I've been told
we are not in line with 1099 employment law at all.
No. And I know, there's got to be some, I don't know, loopholes. Yeah. Some allowable loophole that allows realtors not, because I've been asked all the time, why don't I just 1099 inspectors? I can't. I can't. Like, they've made it so hard to 1099 people. Like, if I tell you what software to use, where to be, what to wear, how to do it, all those things, you're not a 1099 employee. You're a W-2 employee.
Yep.
And real estate, they really flirt that line, especially teams.
Oh, they're really, but it's funny because behind the scenes, from my perspective, what I'm noticing across the board is a complete backpedaling, because I think people are starting to get educated into 1099 employment law. And it's all of a sudden you're seeing team handbooks or ICA agreements or any of this stuff. It's all changing, because it's like, even down to like when I came in, there was a big stink about like, you can't wear jeans, right? And a lot of teams or a lot of brokerages will say that you can't wear jeans. And it's like, well, if I
do whatever I want,
if I'm 1099, you bet I can't. Like, but it becomes a like company policy then all of a sudden, or they're trying to backpedal out of it now, is what I see, where they're like, well, I can't tell you not to. But
and the problem is because of how it's structured, in that you have to hang your license with one brokerage, versus a 1099, I can work for any company I want to, right? That's how that works. You take an electrician, that's a 1099 electrician, because and a lot of people don't know this, is that there's national corporations for all these different trades, but we'll use electrical, right? And they get these big contracts for like Nike and Starbucks and whatnot, and they get the contracts, but they have subcontractors. Yep. A friend of mine does it, and that's all he does. It's this commercial work that he gets fed through these other companies, but there's 3 or 4 or 5 different companies that feed him work. Yep. Because he's a subcontractor. His company, he schedules it. He does it when he can, his tools, all the things. And then he invoices back to the company, right? The work that he's done. But you can't do that as a realtor. I'm with this brokerage, but I'm 1099. And that's the part that really boggles me, in how that's okay.
But I think it's because of the oversight aside from that as well. Like the way that we market, even the amount of marketing that I see where I'm like, you're in direct violation. You have to put your brokerage information on there. You have to spell out anything real estate related, like all of that, your license number, the equal housing, your realtor logo, like all of that should be present, and it's not. So I think we're in this weird part of time where the industry is kind of, everything has to shift, and we've had such a hodgepodge of throwing it together, and there was such a boom, especially here in Richmond. I mean, you think of how many options you have available to you as an agent, especially with all the little boutique brokerages that exist. Like, we have the major ones, right? And then we have the cloud brokerages that are kind of blowing up, and we'll see how that goes. And then there's all these little tiny boutique brokerages as well. So there's so many options and so many different ways of doing things, but we're still, it's like there's too many options, and it created a bit of a cluster. And I think our industry is completely having to course correct on a lot of things.
Yeah. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of them go, like you said, to a salary position. you'll see caps go away at that point, because a lot of these companies have caps.
Well, I think caps are a terrible idea in general.
Yeah.
I'm going to catch a lot of heat for saying this, but I will say from a brokerage standpoint, this is why when I study these companies, and it's like a hobby of mine, but when I look at these little boutique brokerages, it is almost always a guarantee that the broker is also a producing agent, because they have to be. Because the minute you offer a cap, especially if you're not careful with that cap, you've screwed yourself as a business owner. Yeah. There is not enough profit margin. People ask me all the time, when are you going to be a broker and open a brokerage? And I'm like, that's a terrible business to get into, in my opinion. From studying what those profit margins look like, they're already so thin. Yeah. And so when you're in a market like Richmond, especially where there's too many options and you're trying to be competitive and you're offering a lower cap, you just shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
100%.
That's going to be the name of the podcast, is Caps Suck.
I don't think they suck. I think
Mandy. We'll attribute that quote to Mandy. So everybody knows where it came from.
They serve a purpose. I understand why people do them and why they seem appealing, and they're certainly appealing from the agent standpoint.
For sure.
If you're the broker, though, I don't recommend that at all.
It's just like any other company, right? When I started on my own, I made all the money. Yep. Right. And when you work, 5, 6, 7 days a week, you make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, I'm tired. I need to hire people. And then you don't make money anymore. And then you start stressing because you're not making money. Mm-hmm. Because there's a breakover point.
Yep.
When you get X amount of employees, you start making money again. Right. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of, especially boutique brokerages and small teams,
they'll never hit it.
They don't have the amount of people needed to where they can finally say, I'm done producing, right? There's not that many of them out there. There's a couple of them that I've talked to and I do inspections for, and they flat out said, like, I don't do buyers unless it's a friend, but that's because they built out their team so much. Yep. They don't have to. Right. But most of them, like you said, they're still very much producing, because if they don't produce, then the bills don't get paid.
Yeah. There is very few. I can think of 2 in our Richmond market that passed that breakover point to where they were able to actually step back. I don't see it though. And when I talk to them, and I'm a numbers girl, right? And so in my head, I'm constantly doing the math when they're talking about their split structures and what they offer and the staff that they employ, and I'm looking at their building and I'm hearing a cap. I'm like, in my head, I'm automatically like, nope, you're in the red. There's no way. If you stepped back, you are so far in the red, and you're stuck in that point of, I'm working still just as hard to keep my doors open, even though now I have all this staff and I promised all this stuff. And it's like, you get stuck in there if you can't break out of that. But it is really hard to break out of when this market is very oversaturated when it comes to brokerages, in my opinion.
Real estate is a look at me industry. Mm-hmm. So they want the nice offices, and they'll overpay for an old building in the city
and renovate it to the nines.
Because that's what the image.
Well, and the thing that's crazy too is the rental market is nuts in Richmond, from my opinion, especially on the commercial side at times. And I think what also I see these brokers get themselves in trouble with is, once you put your name on the wall or the name behind the company, then you're getting the attention and the look at me, but then they want to work with you, which defeats the whole purpose of hiring agents to work for you so you could step back. Now they're like, well, I want you because it's your name and you must be the best. Yeah. And so now you're working just as much, if not more.
We had somebody call a few weeks ago that said that they wanted the best, so they wanted me. And I told Amanda, I said, tell them that I haven't done an inspection in 2 years. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm definitely not the best. But no, I mean, there's all valid points in that's where, like, I don't care. We have an office because I needed a place to drop off money. Yep. So we can do a podcast. And this is actually going to work out well where we're at now, because, like, one of my inspectors says, like, cool, because there's time in between inspections, they have a place to come and hang out and do whatever. Would it be cool to have, all the things with an office? Sure. I mean, all the things.
You have all the costs that comes
But
with
I don't need it.
Yeah, parking, Sidney,
Parking,
would be awesome so that I don't get towed out of here.
Lots of parking. But, yeah, I mean, that'd be cool, but we don't need to spend $100,000 on renovations to have all the things when no one cares.
Yeah.
Like no one cares, right?
And I think that's what I've learned in my 8 years is because I got to this point where it was like people were really pushing me to grow. They were like, you need to get a buyer's agent and you need to like grow a team and you should do this. And there was a lot of pressure at one point where I was really considering like I should do this. But then being a numbers girl, it was realizing what is the benefit? Like I am going to end up working more. I know that for less money because I know my personality. I'm not going to step back and let somebody do it. I'm going to be involved. I'm going to keep trying to help you. I'm going to keep trying to train you.
And if you're not in a situation to where you're paying for leads, because like we've said, those companies are cutting back and funneling leads to very specific people now.
Yep.
There's
a top 4.
Yeah. So now those agents, especially if you get an agent from a team that did feed them leads.
Yep.
And now they're like, well, I'm not producing. What do I do? Like I said, you're going to lose money because now we go back to what's your hourly rate?
Yep.
Because you spending time training, that's worth something. Whether you see it or not, that's worth something because you're taking time away from someplace else.
Yep.
So now you have to compensate for that.
Yep.
And then that agent gets frustrated, they leave. Now you got to find another agent, This
is why I think traditional real estate teams fail is because you get these agents in who are young and hungry and they want to learn and they want the benefits that come with a team, but then the loyalty aspect isn't there. Once they can stand on their own 2 feet, then they're out the door as they should be because why not? Like that's their only opportunity to grow. And so I think that's where you also run into a lot of problems with the small teams too that I see is there's so much turnover. And then the team lead gets really resentful because they're like, I poured into you. I helped you grow. And it's like, well, that's the whole point. Like if I was to create a team, I would do it with every intention of knowing I expect you to be off of this team and out from underneath me within 2 years. Like that is the expectation.
I've never gotten mad because someone left.
Yeah.
I've been frustrated not because they left, but because I have to find somebody else, right? But I am happy that they had to go do what they had to do, right? And I think if you talk to anybody who worked for me and they went off and did other things, when they told me that, hey, I'm going to go do this is my 2 weeks, I didn't say anything negative to them, right? I mean, that's what you need.
Yeah.
Go do you, whatever you need, let me know. I'm happy to help you. Whatever, the stressful, and that's just understanding that that's going to happen in a business. Has nothing to do with them. Right.
No.
So as a business owner, it is stressful and it is irritating, but not irritating, but it's expected, right? Like it's built in. Right. When Gordon left, the one thing he did was he told me multiple times is I'm not going to leave you hanging.
Yeah.
And he didn't.
No.
He made sure that we had people in place. That way, once he left, that we had people to pick up those inspections. So we didn't dip at all. And that was appreciative. He didn't have to do that. And I would have been okay if he didn't do that, if he needed to leave earlier, like I said, it's more on my end and now what do I have to do, but I'm never mad at the employee who decides to leave, right? Because at the end of the day, I've said it over and over again. In the next 20 years, the only person I expect to be here is me, right? Hopefully other inspectors, but they're not going to be the same people that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah.
If they are, great, but that's not the expectation, right? And that's a lot of people fail to realize that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And something I hear from team leads a lot that I think is super interesting is they build up a team of a few agents and then they get mad when they leave and they're like, they just don't care about it the way that I care about it. And I'm like, no, duh. They shouldn't. No one is. It's your company. Yeah. Nobody will ever care more about your company than you will. And they shouldn't. it is yours. Stop putting that expectation on them that they're supposed to ride or die for you and for your company. That's not how that works.
Yeah. Fortunately, we've got people who understand. Will they care as much as I do? Probably not, but they understand that if they screw up the brand, they screw up their paychecks, right? Because that's the kind of industry we're in, right? Like, I'm not using them again, so it does affect them. So they are all in when it comes to that. But no, they're not going to care.
And I will say, I think the difference for you guys and the difference for certain team structures in their success level and where their employees care is when you're actually giving value. But what I see a ton in real estate teams specifically, at least traditional structures, you are not providing value, or you provide value to a certain point. But I'm sorry, if you're a team lead who makes buku bucks and you're just out here like bragging about how great you are,
taking your 9th vacation of the year,
right? And you're not doing these trainings and you're not actually holding their hand and like providing them business as well. Like, you are giving them business. This is your job, is to do the marketing and pay for it and all of that.
And understanding what the value is that they need or want, right? Because it's not always just give me leads, right? Like, for one of my guys who's no longer with us, like, he went through a very hard time, and I could have fired him a dozen times. Yeah. And I didn't, because it was understanding. Right? Because life happens. I've got another one that, whether or not they know it or not, like, I've paid some things I probably shouldn't have paid for them. Right. Yeah. But when they do find out, those are the things that, like, I'm never leaving. Like, or if I leave, it's not going to be doing to another home inspection company. It's going to be doing something else, whatever. Because you took care of them in other ways. Right. And they see that. But if they did, like, it still wouldn't hurt my feelings. Like, I wouldn't change anything about it. Because it's just the right thing to do.
And I think there's also the self-awareness that's needed of whether or not you're actually the right fit. I think what I see a lot is something I respected a ton about one of my mentors, and she's a fantastic leader, but she turned away a ton of agents, actually. And I didn't know that for the first few years that I worked there until I started to get into the recruiting side. But the amount of times that agents would interview and we'd sit down and talk, and then and I would talk, and she'd be like, they're just not the right fit. Like, we're not going to be most beneficial to them. We're not going to serve them the best. Yeah. And so she would just not offer them a position. And it's interesting because I see a lot of the opposite. I see a lot of team leads or brokerages taking as much as they can and kind of almost like throwing whatever they can at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, it's grasping at straws to see what you
instead of
grab.
being selective, and instead of also having the self-awareness to say, I'm not going to provide what you're looking for.
It's that whole, when you start business, you take on every client because you're afraid of not getting a paycheck. And then you reach that point finally, you're like, no, I don't need you.
Yeah,
you
that's
can call
my
this
favorite.
company.
Being at that point now to be able to be choosy is so nice.
Yeah, so I think a lot of team leaders, they start seeing that overhead or whatever that they got going on to start a team. They're just trying to get agents in the door to get established.
And you get a cut. So it's like, okay, well, it becomes a volume thing instead of what's the best fit. And then you face a lot of turnover, which is a lot of stress.
As we've said, this is a small town. And when that starts to happen, people start talking. There's quite a few brokerages and teams where I've been told, they're like, hey, I've heard a lot of people leaving that team, or that brokerage or whatever. They're over there struggling, and it's from people like, why do you know that?
Yeah.
But it's that kind of a town that it's not a secret.
No, it is a very small
when you start
city.
Having a high turnover rate and whatnot. And there starts to get cracks in the team and the brokerages and whatnot. That starts getting out pretty quick.
Which is why I think we'll start to see, and I'm really hopeful of this. You and I have talked about this. I'm really hopeful that we'll start to see kind of this. We're clearing everything out back down to a really professional level.
Yeah.
And where you can't just do a pay to play. Like, you actually have to be good at your job. You have to be trained. You have to be knowledgeable. You have to have experience under your belt. You have to have somebody doing the oversight on you. Because I think it got to be wild, wild west there for a while.
It did. It did. And I think when you lump all the things that's happening in the industry that people aren't paying attention to, like the AI stuff and the companies buying companies and the data, and then the lawsuit, and now the changes in how people are doing the 1099s and structuring their teams, that you're going to start seeing some seismic shifts in the industry, and start seeing teams and agents just go away.
Yep.
Because like I said, you're just, everybody makes a big deal when you see Facebook laid off 20,000 people, whatever the case is. But if you take COVID as the example, for a lot of industries, they got really busy really quick, and they had to hire a lot of people.
Yep.
And then COVID went away, and then things started filtering back out to normal levels. But those companies still had the payroll of COVID times, but now they've decreased their volume. So it's like, well, we got to get rid of these people. So then you see the headline, mass layoffs.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this is it. Economy's tanking. This is it. When really it's just a correction.
Of course,
right?
correction.
Because they
From
had
a global pandemic.
yeah, in an anomaly, right? That wasn't normal, and it wasn't sustainable. Just like real estate wasn't sustainable the way we were going, you know, that nobody wanted to listen or believe, but it wasn't. Some of these companies wasn't sustainable in the volume they were pumping out and the amount of employees that they needed. At some point, it's just like it's no different than JCPenney's hiring seasonal workers at Christmas time.
Yep.
After Christmas time,
bye.
They go away, right? So it's the same concept, but now we're just going to see that more on a real estate level.
Yeah, and I think when you have these major companies coming in and being disruptors into this industry, now that they're putting massive amounts of money in, and it's their data centers and it's their software that they own, in order to work with these agents moving forward, I think what agents need to be aware of is you are going to give up some of your freedom. Like they're going to want control over the situation that has their name on it. Right. And this is where brokerages couldn't do it, but these companies can.
They can, yeah.
What I hear a lot from brokers is, I would love for my agents to be highly trained, but I can't force them to come in for trainings. I can't force you to be here. I can't force you to hit certain numbers.
And that's when I get a phone call saying, hey, you want to sponsor our meeting for lunch?
Yep.
And they legit come out and say,
try to incentivize them.
Incentivize. I said, we get more people if you provide lunch.
Which is pathetic. Because you should want to be good at your job.
You should.
All on your own. If you want to be a business owner.
Or you need to offer something that makes people want to come. Right?
But that's what's wild to me. The fact of getting trained and being highly knowledgeable at what you do should be enough for you. If you want to make six figures, baby, you should be willing to spend an hour a week at a training.
If you're willing to drive 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes to your office for a free Publix sandwich.
Right. Some Chick-fil-A chicken minis.
then I mean, I don't know. Sell more houses maybe that's the problem, right?
Yes.
People are gonna be mad, but maybe the broker just need to stop acting like a soup kitchen.
Yeah, I do feel that way, but it's hard because that is the reality. They cannot get their agents to care about the work that they do or their time, or they're like, I'm just too busy, and it's like, okay, but if you're not trained and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get not only yourself in trouble and the brokerage.
What'd your new team leader say that they don't show up and they screw up? It's on them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the attitude.
That is the attitude. This is your business, your company. If you don't value your training and you mess up, that's your problem. Yeah. I will not get you out of it.
Yeah. You come here and do all the right things, I'll help you out. I mean, it's no different when I was in the Navy, when I was in the fire department. I always had people ahead of me, and they always said, if you screw up and you come to me and you tell me that you screwed up, I got you.
It's like your kids. Yep.
Yeah. But if you don't tell me, I can't help you. If you lie to me, you're on your own.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
And if you're walking around like you're better than everybody while not doing the things that would have potentially helped you, then no, I'm not bailing you out.
And the difference is I just got in trouble. I got yelled at. I still got my paycheck. Versus this, like they're gonna take money away.
It's like
they
my
can take
dad
the
when
license
he
away.
was like, if you like get yourself in a situation, like I'll come pick you up. I won't be mad. I won't ask questions. Do you think that happened? He was mad and he had questions.
yes.
Like, you liar.
Yes. So
Yeah, he's like, I'll come get you. Blah blah. You're such a liar.
and I mean, it's going to happen in our industry as well, but ours is different. Like I said, I've talked about companies buying up software companies for the data, right? And that's going to happen. Like our company isn't there yet, but at some point. And then the best part is when you get all these home inspectors online and they start calling the guys who own and develop these software sellouts. Like, no, they started a business. And if someone wants to offer them $10 million for their business, you ain't going to say no, right? Like, stop lying, right? Nobody, you ain't going to say no if someone offers you millions of dollars for your property, right? Ain't going to happen. But that's what a lot of people do. They start a business, they build it up, and then they offload it for a lot of money. But at some point, it's going to happen, right? They're going to sell out for the data because at some point, somebody's going to offer a number that they just can't refuse. Yep. And now I'm going to have those conversations with clients like, yeah, you get a phone call from, ADT. That's not me, right? This is just the normal industry now. But the other thing that's trying to happen, and maybe this is like a Zillow, Redfin, Open Door, they got to figure it out. And at some point when they figure it out, it's going to be a game changer. But there are companies trying to they're trying to drive the price down. So they're trying to be nationwide companies. So you go through them. They subcontract to a home inspection company here. I have to pay them a fee, like 20% of my inspection fee. And I can't, in theory, I'm not supposed to add 20% onto my original bill to offset that. So if I charge $400, I'm supposed to lose 20% out the gate to get this deal. But
well, it's a lead provided to you.
In a way,
yeah, you're paying a lead
in a
fee.
way, but it's different than like Angie's List and all that stuff. Like these are just actual inspection companies, and some of them are.
Well, that's what they do to us.
A lot of them are advertising home inspections for like $199, and you'll see them in the inspector groups where they're like, "Hey, we're looking for inspectors in these areas," and like, "Yeah, we'll pay you $35 an inspection," like some ridiculously low number.
Yeah,
and it's like, no,
no.
So far, they've been massive fails because they start hemorrhaging money because no home inspector in their right mind is going to say, yeah, I'll do that. I'll forego my $600 fee and give you 20% or do it for $150 or whatever. Nobody's going to do that. But at some point, maybe they figure it out. Maybe they get some legs on it because they got somebody pumping enough money into it. Yeah. To give it some longevity. Yeah. And get in front of enough people. Because again, that's all it's about is getting those advertisements in front of people. So they see it repetitively like, oh, well, I don't need to call 360. I just call this guy on my Facebook feed, right? Schedule it, we're done.
Well, and I think that is the goal. It is to be a one-stop shop. And especially like my generation, we're the ones who are perfect for this. Yeah. The millennial generation, like, great. This is just, it's like, it's seamless. And all they're doing is exactly what you said. It's the same thing that they started with agents, and now they're doing it with mortgage lenders. They're doing it with home inspections. They're doing it with title companies. And so it's, all right, we're going to sub it out. You're going to pay us a fee, but we run the marketing. We're going to help you in this way. It's targeted. You get all the data. Like the amount of these trainings that I've sat in where it like blows my mind. But to me, it's like from a business standpoint, sure, let's say I pay you 30%. I didn't have any of the overhead of running those servers, running the ads, paying the people to create the ads, targeting those ads. None of it. The app, like I don't have any of that overhead. So from a business standpoint, it's like, sure, you want to hand me some business and it costs me 30%? Okay.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. Now, the downside for us is these companies are wanting to use their software versus our own. Yep. And their software is horrible. Right. It's so bad. It's like, nah, we good.
Right. But they'll do, you know what they'll do? They'll do what they did to us. They're going to start buying up the software that you guys generally use. 100%. They're going to own it, and they're going to turn around and sell it back to you.
Yeah. That's what they're getting now are new inspectors. Yeah. Who just don't have business.
That's what they did with agents. That's where they started. The entire industry is headed in this direction. And it is why I decided to make that move. But it does come to a point where it's similar to team leads and brokerages, where it's like, it just makes too much sense.
Yeah.
Like the value, you're giving me what I want. It's a little clumsy at first. They're kind of missing the mark in the beginning, but at least for my side of things, they're really kind of hitting the nail on the head right now.
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time before that happens to the lender side, to the inspector side, to the title side. So it'll be very curious to see 5 years from now where we are.
It will be. Fortunately, AI can't replace us.
Right.
Because AI can't go into crawl spaces.
And I don't think maybe that's naive, but I don't think the goal is to completely replace them. They just want to partner with you. It's just changing the middleman. That's it.
Yes. I think they're just trying to create their own market share at the end of the day. Yeah.
For sure.
So, I mean,
Which
like
is
I said,
what we're all trying to do.
Yeah. Like I said, there's it doesn't matter how big Keller Williams is, they're never going to get 100% market share, right? Or Long & Foster or Remax. And same thing with Redfin and Zillow, whatever. It doesn't matter what they do. They're not going to get 100% market share, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to have a meaningful impact on agents.
Especially because they have the deepest pockets.
They do. They do. And if they run out of money, they'll just find somebody else to invest them more money.
And
infuse the money.
I don't think they're running out of money anytime soon.
No. And I mean, you get mad at them all they want, but they got shareholders, and their goal, their job is to generate money for their shareholders and to be profitable.
Well, and we are the shareholders.
Exactly.
Like when you look at who owns these companies, it's technically you. So if you don't like them, you have to realize you're funding them.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I'm not going to lie. I mean, I bought stock in Zillow.
But you didn't. You probably did Vanguard.
No, it's Zillow.
So, okay.
Yeah.
But those large shareholders, those hedge funds, they're the ones that fund. They own every single last one of them.
Yeah. They do.
The only one they don't own is the MLS Core Matrix.
Yeah.
Convenient.
Well, I think it's going to be exciting times. Well, for some, not for all.
Yeah.
In the next few years.
I just think it's different. I think you have to be willing to adapt to change. And that's been true for companies or business owners forever. Yeah.
Like, you've got to pay attention to your industry. And I think that's the problem with a lot of agents and a lot of home inspectors and a lot of everybody else is just, they just bury their heads in the sand.
Yes, I've
and
heard
they don't see
so much.
the tidal wave coming.
No.
And that's the problem, right? It's like, oh, it'll be fine. I'll just block out the noise. I see that all the time, right? Block out the noise. And just hashtag grind, right?
I taught a class on this, and an agent literally told me, looked me dead in the face and said, I'm not worried about that. I'm going to put my head down and focus on the things that I need to focus on. And I said, this is the thing you need to focus on.
And I'm always one to say, hey, I mean, don't waste energy and time on things you can't control.
Sure.
But you need to be aware of what's happening.
You do.
Because just because you can't control what's changing doesn't mean you can't figure out ways to change with it.
Yep.
Because otherwise, you're going to be just going to your office for a weekly lunch session just to get fed.
Mm-hmm. Ain't that the truth?
And people will be mad about that one.
Yeah, they will.
Like I said, if they're providing great training, show up. But if they're providing free food and that's why you show up,
right?
There's a problem there on a lot of different levels. But anyways, we'll see what happens.
We will see.
What we're going to talk about next time.
I don't know.
Maybe we'll get Courtney a microphone. We'll go back to tipping.
We'll see. We'll give it a go.